Hey, Brandon.
What it do? Back in this thing. And oh, first of all, anything that I say in general is my opinion.
You don't know what you're talking about, do you?
The 5 things that I think are bro science. Number 1 is going to be defoliation. In my experience, excessive or heavy defoliation should not just be done because it's transition in the flower or in the middle of flower, right? When you take off those big fan leaves, you're limiting the plant's ability to absorb sunlight and perform photosynthesis.
Why? Which
is going to turn your water and those nutrients in the water into plant matter, right? So when a plant is really little, this is when I like to defoliate. When a plant is little and it has the big fan leaves that are covering up the little branches coming out of the main stem, I like to, when I have about 5 or 7 stacks of branches, like 1 stack, 2 stack, 3 stack, when I get to about 5 is the earliest that I'll remove any leaves, and I'll take off those big fan leaves because I want the plant to then grow those smaller branches. So when I cut those leaves, those big fan leaves that are covering up the branches, when I cut those off, that will then send those growth auxins into the branches and help those to branch out. And then that's when you get the plant starts to form that, not necessarily like a Christmas tree structure, but it's growing the branches out like spider legs upside down, like if a spider was dead with its legs up in the air, kind of like that. So I do not like the heavy defoliation before flower. I will hit like the bottom, like maybe the bottom 1/3 of the plant. But I have seen like the Jungle Boys, I've seen where they basically strip the entire plant up to like the top 2 or 3 inner nodes, and by the end of harvest you see like, you know, a 2-foot stack of just colas, big fat colas. I would say that they're just really good and they know how to do it, and they know their strains, possibly, I don't know. But from my personal experience, when I've done that, what I ended up doing was stunting the growth of my plant. So the plant growth would slow down. If my nutrients were too high, I've had that cause issues, and I did not get a big old fat harvest of just long colas. My canopy might have grown another foot. So I don't know. I feel like, and I've seen a lot of pictures of stuff on the internet. I would throw pictures in here, but I don't want this video to be demonetized, so we're not going to go that route. But I've seen videos where people will defoliate their plant in flower, and by the end of flower they have all these little buds. And the reason why you might be getting little buds at the end of your harvest is because you are taking its solar panels that allow it to take all of that light. Your big LED 600 watt LED fixture, or your big 1000 watt HID or 600 watt HID, it's not going to be able to utilize all that light. The number 2 bro science thing, flushing, absolutely is flushing. I feel like, I guess you would say, leach the soil, where you just like nutrient water, you know, or nutrient water. I've found that if my plants are really in gear, like they're going 100 miles an hour, like they're running this race hard,
I gotta go fast.
I find that when I hit them with water, it kind of stunts its rate of growth. So whether that's producing flowers or whether that's producing leaves in the vegetation stage, I definitely feel like there's less gas in the tank. And the only time that I really do the nutrient water is when I'm using organics in conjunction with my synthetic nutrients. So when you have the microbes and the trichoderma and all that stuff in the soil, you can afford to just give it water and maybe some molasses, and that the molasses will feed the microbes, and then the microbes will multiply and also help your plant to process those nutrients that are still within the soil, because you will be building up nutrients. It's not using, even though you're feeding them with all the nutrients, with not just the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium, but you also got, you know, CalMag, you got iron, copper, zinc, magnesium. I might have already said that, but you have all these other elements, and the plant isn't drawing all of these elements equally or at whatever ratio that your hydroponic nutrients have on there. So yes, I will do a nutrient water with the organic microbes in there, so that they're eating up the excess nutrients and helping the plant to absorb those. But I feel like flushing slows you down. In flowering, maybe not so much. I do know that it's pretty bro science that you should flush, you know, 2 weeks or 10 days before harvest, because you'll get a cleaner flower at the end. There has been at least one scientific study that I know of that states otherwise, and the results from their test, which is scientific. You perform something, you have a control group, and you have variable groups, you know, it starts there. So with that being said, yes, flushing was proven to not change the taste, not change the potency, or the compounds that are present in the plant after the fact. So after you harvest, you know, it gets rid of the chlorophyll, it gets rid of a lot of the water, and there's not excess nitrogen in there because you didn't flush, or extra phosphorus more so than if you did flush. That is completely bro science. I have seen people smoke flour, and I have done it in my own flour. I've had flour that was flushed and flour that wasn't flushed. And when I smoked both of those different types of plants, both of them had white ash. So this black ash thing, because you didn't flush, not true. If it doesn't taste good, it's not because you didn't flush. It's probably an issue with your drying and curing process more than anything. If you used any sprays like insecticides or anything at any point during flour, that could affect your taste too, because a lot of those things are oil based. So you mix that oil in with the oil that the plant makes, it's just on there, you know what I mean? And then you smoke the flour. Number 3 for me would be harvest time. I believe bro science is like,
my calculations are correct.
you gotta cut down in 8 weeks. Like, no. You have to cut your plant down when your plant is ready. You can cut it whenever you want. And I've done that too, thinking, oh, this plant on the seeds said it was an 8-week strain, 56 days. So I'm gonna cut it at 56 days. What did I get? Just a furry bud after the fact. And it wasn't as strong as it was when I grew it later, and I actually just let it go for 10 weeks. So it compromises the bud structure, it compromises the potency, your yield, and I can't really say taste, but I will say taste, not in that it won't taste good, because whatever that genetic expression of that cultivar is, it's going to express that, period. But with a good life cycle where it's given everything that it needs and it can maximize its genetic potential, that bud that reached its potential is going to be better in all those categories. So I do believe sticking to a specific harvest date is detrimental. Even if you've grown that strain before, just because you pulled it at 8 weeks and it and you were happy, I mean, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're the one smoking it. You know what I mean? But if you're trying to maximize your yield, yeah, man, you just let the plant go. You use your microscope to check for the clarity of the bulbous heads on the, I don't know if they're called they're called trichomes, duh. So yeah, use your little microscopic eyepiece, and when most of those are milky, when your plant is not producing more of white hairs, and those white hairs are starting to turn brown, and when those bud structures, when you're looking at them on a daily basis, you know, after a week has passed, minimally like a few days, 2 or 3 days, if it doesn't look like that bud structure has gotten any bigger, as in just fulling out, or if it has it nubbed up and, you know, like it went from being this long sticking off the plant to being a little bit longer, if it's not growing anymore, then at that point it's ready. You know what I mean? So yeah, that might take 7 weeks, but probably not. All right, so moving on, number 4, I believe, is curing. It's something that you do not want to rush through. I know you want to rush through because it's like, dang, 9 weeks of flower, 10 weeks of flower, you done veg for 4, 8 weeks, you know, 3 months. You're like, man, I'm trying to hurry up and smoke. Drying and curing, you want it to take a little bit of time, so that it can properly rid itself of excess water and chlorophyll and the other compounds and elements that are in the plant's tissue matter. So in that flower, you want all that stuff gone, and you want it to, I'm not sure exactly what the biological process is of how it gets rid of all those compounds, but you don't want it to be rushed. You want your temperatures to be within range, as in, you know, no more than 70 degrees. I like mine around 60, and then I like to keep my humidity at around 60 also, and that's it. And if your humidity is less than that, it's going to dry the plant out quicker than it takes for these processes to happen. If your humidity is too high, you run the risk of mold, and then that the flower having mold on it is, I believe, it's unhealthy to smoke, but it's also going to affect the taste and the smell. And the same thing for the temperature. I'm not sure what would happen if the temperature would be too low, other than it would take too long. So longer than that 10 to 14 day, maybe. I don't know about 21 days. I've heard people say, you know, 3 weeks, but I can't speak on that. So yeah, having ideal curing conditions, for me, it's not fact, but it's very likely that you will get the desired outcome, so long as your genetics and your flower growth cycle was on point. That's going to ensure you have the best quality end product after putting in all that time. All right, so the last one, I know it's a doozy, but the last one is going to be nutrients. All right, nutrients. The bro science of nutrients is, in my opinion, whatever has good marketing. So at one point it was advanced nutrients, or you hear about Gaia Green, or what at Fox Farm, right? It's either marketing or just word of mouth, people saying, oh yeah, I used this certain product and, you know, everything was great. I think the brand of nutrients, or the kind of nutrients, whether it's organic or synthetic, is overrated. I think what is more important is, number one, is grower talent, or just not even talent. I mean, I guess it is an a talent because it's an acquired skill that you learn from experience and maybe some book stuff also. But that's going to matter more, okay? Advanced nutrients, their grow, all of these companies have a similar amount of nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus in it. And on top of that, though, they may also have some other trace minerals like zinc and copper and stuff like that in them, right? All of those are pretty much the same. If it's an organic, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. If it's synthetic, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium.
It doesn't matter!
The expensive nutrients, I've never used any of those. I've compared flour that I've grown to other flour that I've gotten off the street and from dispensaries. The only difference that I would say, grower ability and genetics. Those are the two factors. But yeah, that's it. The nutrients don't make or break your grow. I will say if a product does not have a good shelf life, or maybe if there's some type of issue with contamination or processing of those nutrients, if it's something really cheap, you know what I mean, then maybe you'll have issues. Like if you get a cheap bag of soil, you might have a ton of gnats in it, as opposed to if you pay for the Fox Farm, then yes, in this situation, buying a specific brand would mean something just because you know that that brand has ensured the quality of the product. But the more expensive the product does not mean that its quality or effectiveness is higher, in my experience. So those were the 5 things, and there's plenty more, but 5 that I chose that are pretty bro sciencey things that do not necessarily benefit you if you follow them. So hopefully this video was helpful. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit that like button. You can subscribe to my channel, check out some more content I got, and yeah, peace out. Y'all take it easy.
Hey, Brain.